Button. Hey!
We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our book club discussion of We Hunt the Flame. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Angela. My channel is Literature Science Lions. I'm sleep deprived. It is football Sunday, and I'm ready. I'm ready for the Browns to probably lose to the Chiefs. That's where I'm at. That's all I've got. I've decorated for fall a little bit. I put some fall foliage, and I put up. I'm pretty excited.
I'm so ready for fall.
I'm so excited. I didn't put up my Halloween decorations. I don't mind decorating for fall before it's technically fall, but my spooky decorations, I wait till like October 1st.
Mm-hmm.
That's my choice.
That'll be here before you know it.
Oh, yeah. It's already the 12th. Holy moly. Okay. Anyways, how are you, Stephanie?
I'm good. I'm Stephanie. My channel is Miss Richards Reads, and I have not decorated for fall, but I am so ready for fall to be here.
It's just nice not to be like, I mean, I know in Arkansas you guys get warmer weather longer, but it's like nice that it's like 75 degrees instead of 90. It's just lovely.
Yeah, I think it was 80 something here yesterday, so we're on the decline. Yeah, but we still probably won't have fall weather till October.
We're still trying to figure out when we take the window AC unit out. It's like, is it time? Do we wait? Is there going to be another?
Oh my gosh. So we will do this spoiler-free first for a little bit, and then jump into spoilers. So this was your second time reading it?
I read it the first time last year before the sequel was out, and I was like, oh, this was really fun. Keeping in mind, I don't read like a ton of young adult fantasy. I read like probably like a handful a year versus like how much I consume adult fantasy. And I was like, oh, this is really fun. It has a lot of tropes I like. And then the ending is like an ending. And I'm like, oh no. And the sequel got, I think originally I read it because I knew the sequel was supposed to be published in 2020. And like, I kind of was like, I want to read like diverse young adults so I can vote for them on the Goodreads Awards, which I know is like a weird reason to do anything. But it was like my like my mental thing. And then it wasn't released till 2021. And so by that point, I needed to reread it because I tried to pick up the sequel and I was like, I don't know any of these names. Don't remember. And I'm going to DNF this book unless I remember.
Yes. I know, when you read so many books, it's hard to remember in between unless you read them back to back, at least for me.
Well, and I also read it. So like my least favorite month of reading this year was March. And I was trying to read it in March after a bunch of duds. And I'm like, no, this book deserves more. I'm gonna reread Well of Ascension or something. That's, I think, what I chose to do. So, but yeah, no, I mean, so I liked it. Gave it 4 stars both times. Like, solid for me. Fun time.
Yes. This was my first time reading it. And I've had it since the day it came out. And I hadn't read it yet. So I enjoyed it. I gave it a solid 4. There were some flaws, but I would definitely reread it, and I'm looking forward to the sequel.
Yeah, I think the sequel is stronger, although I still give it 4 stars, but it's like a 4 stars that was like almost a 4.5. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. I really liked the sequel a lot, especially since like you've now met all the characters, and now you just get to lean into that more. You don't have to like build up the connections. They're already there, and like there's a lot of fun. I think this happens to me in a lot of my favorite young adults, where the first book's a lot of setup and it's fun, and the second book brings me my favorite like romance tropes in the young adult, and it like brings it to play, and I'm just like, it's so fun.
Yeah, because I was well, I'll get into that in spoiler sections, but the stuff I was waiting for didn't happen until later in the book, which is fine, but I haven't read YA fantasy in a little while. And so I was so ready to get to it, and it took longer than I thought. So the first part of the book kind of dragged a little for me. It wasn't unenjoyable, but it just felt like I was taking forever to read not a lot of pages.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people. So I think that's a very popular opinion. My unpopular opinion is I loved the pacing of the beginning. But like, I'm also the person who doesn't think The Unbroken or Mask of Mirrors is slow paced ever, and a lot of people think the beginnings of those are slow paced. like, I guess technically in terms of are things happening, no, but my engagement was always really high at the beginning of this book. Like, I loved meeting Zafira, and I loved, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Nasir is as interesting at the beginning because, like, I think he's very much a certain type of trope. He's very much the, like, brooding, dark prince assassin character, you know, that, like, obviously has humanity, but, like, shoves it deep down, you know?
Right.
Like, we've met that character. Like, he exists. But, like, I really liked her. And even though, like, in theory, she's kind of tropey too, like the Huntress. Like, I mean, that's like in ACOTAR, that's in Hunger Games. Like, that's not like out of this world trope. But I loved seeing her and her family and like her best friend relationship and her sister relationship. And when I love that they got ice cream. I don't know. I don't think that's a spoiler that they get ice cream, but I liked that.
That made me so happy. It was adorable. And
so I think the beginning part was important for me because there were so many tropes going on, I think there's so much like traditional young adult fantasy going on just in a different setting that if it didn't have that slower buildup at the beginning, I would have personally had a lesser enjoyment time because I wouldn't have gotten to enjoy Zafira as much. And then there's also like a scene that happens that we can talk about in spoilers that would not have hit in the way that it hit, if that makes sense. So I don't know, but I totally get it. It's a complaint that happens boundlessly on the internet.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if this will make sense, but like when they talk about the book or when you're first reading the book, it's always the Huntress or the assassin. And it takes a while to actually humanize them, like make them relatable and people you'd probably know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's intentional, especially having read the second book, because I think those characters think about themselves in that way. They don't humanize themselves very much.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll have to remind me because I never paid attention to this. Was this third person limited?
I think so, yeah.
So I think we are generally primarily with Zafira or Nasir this book. And so when we're in their perspectives, they really are, they're very hard on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they're very observant about their surroundings and the people that they're with, but their observations about self are very stunted, I would say.
Yeah, and I get why she did it. I think that was part of the reason why it just took me a little longer to get into it. But then once you get to know them, then it's like, okay, I can get on board with this.
Well, and like I also, and so like this is me as like a world building person. I thought that so I think there's a lot of young adult tropes. And I think the idea of the quest to return magic is like a cliche of all time. But I thought this world itself was so interesting. The fact that we're not in a place where people live with magic, but we're hearing about it. Like everyone used to have a magical affinity. We have these different caliphates that have been cursed in certain ways. Like we're in a Middle Eastern setting book, but it's snowing all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like, and we have this spooky forest, and I love spooky forests like a lot. So I think there was a lot of the world building intrigue and setting that captured me more than I expected. Like I was very invested in the quest, even though normally quest stories, I mean, you know this about me, Stephanie, I'm not into a quest story. Not my bread and butter.
Right.
And like the way the quest is set up is so like plot device after plot device, you know, just like everyone get there.
But there's something about it that just worked really well for me. It checked a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
And it did. Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's just, I was going to say, like, I think a lot of people who end up DNFing or not liking the series as much as I do are people who are more well-versed in young adult fantasy, because I do think it is tropey. And, like, if you are tired of those tropes, or if these aren't your tropes, like, I think maybe it's just not as interesting. But for me, since it is, like, a fun, quick read when, like, my brain didn't need to be, like, on fire, but still, like, engaging enough that I'm like, ooh, but there is this, like, little mystery. And it's, and I think I did like Nasir and Zafira. Like, I think I really did like them.
Yeah, it's a good middle of the road book, like pacing wise. And then, what was I going to say? It gave me Daevabad vibes, like Daevabad Light.
Yeah.
Which I really, really liked. Because
Well,
I
and
just really like the world building.
yeah, and then like for me it's stronger in the sequel, but like especially because I was doing audiobook for the sequel and not immersion read, which I reread Davabad all audio and then only read Empire of Gold with audio, which was like my first time ever reading like a high fantasy book with only the audio. But those audios are so good. And so like the setting being the same and it being like for me like a nostalgia experience of like this time last year I was reading Empire of Gold with audio, like that intensified my personal Davabad vibes, but I feel hesitant to like ever say that out loud because like I know plenty of people who love Davabad who don't like this book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think Davabad light vibes is a good way to put it because I don't want to make people's expectations too high. And I hate to compare books that are kind of different, but we have like the Ifrit and so many things from both worlds that are the same.
Yeah, and I mean, and like you have strong female protagonists who are like in over their head in political situations, which is pretty much what Nari has to go through all the time. Like, I just think there are a lot of things vibe wise. Like, we're just talking vibes.
Yes.
I had similar vibes, but they're not the same story. It's not the same writing style or anything like that. I just got vibes for days.
Yes.
And City of Brass, though, like that was only one narrator. What's nice about these audiobooks is it's two narrators, and I loved the narrator for the male voices. I thought that he was awesome. I can't remember his name right now, but he was fantastic.
Yeah, especially since it was short chapters and we flipped back and forth. I think if they had used one narrator and you were listening to it just straight audio, it might have gotten a little confusing. Like if you drifted off for a bit.
Well, and like what I think the narrator did that I didn't do as well as like a physical reader on my first read is like certain characters have such strong personalities that came through with the acting.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't think like Altair, which we haven't talked about yet, who I love, like I don't think I did him justice in my own internal like head. And then like hearing his voice in the audiobook, I'm like, this guy is awesome. Really like this dude.
Yes, he's one of my favorites. I really liked him.
And like it also helped because I think a thing that overwhelmed me on my first read is when we meet all the rest of our quest traveling companions. I'm like, there's just so many people. Who is who? And like having them have distinct voices, I think helped because I'm just not personally good at that in my reading experience. Like when I am reading in my own head, no one gets different voices. They're all like the same. They're all the same voice. I don't have that in my brain. Like I know some people have like a full cast in their head, but
I don't.
No. So were you one of the people who did like the second half more than the first half by a fair margin? Like when did it become like really fun for you ish?
Probably the second half, just because at that point I was invested in the characters and there was a little bit more action. So
oh, cool. Glad to be of help.
Thank you. Glad you could join. And hello. But yeah, just when things started picking up a little bit and I was invested in what was going on.
Yeah, that happened with my friend Annalisa. Like she really liked it once we were done setting up the quest and once the quest was the focus.
Yeah.
Like
which I didn't not like it, but at the beginning part it was like, if one of these characters die, like nah. But then the second half it's like this is gonna hurt if one of my favorite characters dies.
Yeah. And I think a closer comparison for this series as well as like Davabad Light with a lot of Throne of Glass vibes.
Yeah.
Like, because there's a lot of the trope overlap with like a lot of what Sarah J. Maas uses, which is a young adult author that I have read, which is probably why some things feel more comfortable and cozy for me. Like you have like the kind of evil king with like their assassin, which is, if you haven't read Throne of Glass, like the premise. It's like this king wants to hire an assassin and has this game. And like our main character in Throne of Glass is basically, what is it called? Auditioning to be the assassin. There it is. And then like I already mentioned, Akatar, our main character in that one, is like a huntress for her family or else they will die. there are a lot of familiar tropes. So I think if you're prepared for that and if you like them, I think it's a fun time. I don't know.
Sorry, it's kind of like when we read Incendiary. Like,
Yeah.
it was full of YA tropes, but if you like those tropes, it's so good.
I think so. These are both duologies, and I've now read both of them. The Hollow Crown duology by Zoraida Cordova, which has Incendiary and Illusionary, has some overlap, but also is kind of different. But what I like about that one a bit more than this one is that those books are both 100 pages shorter.
Yes.
And I do think that is a mark in its favor for me when I just like, I'm like, oh, my brain is not on this weekend. I just need a book I can finish in like 3 days, which for me needs to be like 300 pages because my reading speed is like non-existent.
Well, and that's like a good sweet spot for me when I want something just quick that I can enjoy, but I don't have to. It's not going to take me a week to read it.
Well, and Incendiary had the thing, which we have talked about on this channel. So if you have wanted to hear our thoughts about Incendiary, we do have a book club discussion of that from like October or November of last year. It was actually a pretty fun one where we all had a lot of discussions about our favorite ships and things like that. It was a good time. But that one kicked off. That one did not have a slow start. That one just was very stressful for like 100 pages. Versus this one is like a slower start. But I like those things. I think that's why I read. If I want something fast all the time, like I went to go see Shang-Chi yesterday, and I freaking love that movie. I would have hated that as a book. I would not have wanted to read that as a book. But seeing like that 2.5 hour movie, that was a great time. It's fantastic. Spending 8 hours reading that book, no.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I don't know. There's just, I can't really say why it was slower for me, because normally I don't mind slower starts. Because the payoff was worth it for this book. So I'm not mad that it was a slower start. I think it was worth it.
I mean, I think you're right that if like it is, I think most books, not just this one, once you've connected and care about what's happening to the characters, then it doesn't matter what's happening to the characters. But if it takes you some time to get to that point, that would make sense, right? Because there are plenty of books that we both like where like nothing's happening, but we really love those characters. So it doesn't matter that they're just having dinner or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And, maybe it's because, like we said earlier, like they were kind of the huntress and the assassin. They didn't just start off as everyday people.
They were both legends already. Like we are following two legends. So
yeah, and like you said, they're very, what was the word? Like closed off with themselves. So it kind of closed off the reader as well.
But then you learn why they're closed off, and it's great.
And it makes it better.
And like I think something that like is the greatest at the beginning is like, especially with Zafira, her relationship with her best friend is like so sweet. Is so sweet.
I did really like seeing that friendship. That was so nice.
Like, I think that's one of the things that I missed when we got to later parts. Like, I miss Yasmin, like, a lot. Like,
and I love that she still talked about her, thought about her all the way through the book. So that was just really happy for me.
So closed off from herself that she can't have her own inner monologue. Has to be her best friend.
Yes.
So yeah. Any other cool spoiler-free things we could talk about?
The atmosphere was really good, I thought. It was very fitting. And for me, it's easy for me to visualize in my head while I read. And this one, I didn't have any trouble just visualizing everything. And yeah, I thought it did a good job at that.
I think you're right, because as someone who doesn't have clear pictures, like when we were in certain caliphates, like my brain was able to like evoke like a certain movie setting that like had those type of streets. Like I think my brain kind of pulled from Aladdin a little bit for some scenes, and well, especially when like you first meet Nasir when he's doing a bunch of stuff on buildings.
I mean, even on like the cover, Aladdin vibes.
Yeah. So I mean, like there were some moments like that. That island, when we do get there, is really, like the ominous tones go up a couple notches.
Yes.
And I do think that's like a strength of it. And like, yeah, and that continued throughout. So I think we can switch into spoilers. So sorry. Is it Katya? I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Yes.
I don't know how to do the TJ together, and that is my bad.
But once you've read it, come back.
Yes.
Yes. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. So now I'm really going to talk about a spoiler now. This is like your last chance to run to your phone. But Stephanie, how did you feel about when we got to the island and arrows were flying?
I was stressed out. I was so stressed out. Yeah, I just thought that was really well done. I did not want to put the book down.
Well, the arrows were flying, and then we have this character who we know is not the love interest, but who desperately wants to be the love interest, and who's like a good guy. I remember reading that death and being like, oh, we went there. Okay.
I know.
It's just like,
and I was so invested at that point. It was like, oh, we did pronounce it right, by the way.
Okay, cool. I tried.
Good to know.
It's good to know.
Yeah, that was stressful. I did like the fighting scenes as well. They weren't too long, but they were action-packed enough that I was concerned for the safety of the characters.
Yeah, and I just thought like the chaos of it was well explained. Because like I think the third person limited was used well in that when we were with Nasir, we were thinking like an assassin a little bit. We were very like melee, close quarters, and like we felt how overwhelmed Zafira was because she's not a fighter, she's a hunter. Like she's used to making her mark and like pulling, like she's used to a very different paced, like not even fighting, right? It's just like a different form of using weapons.
Mm.
And like, and that chaos is used really well at the end of the book when we're like all like, wait, where's Altair? Which like, oh my goodness.
That was kind of a cliffhanger.
Did you call that Altair and Nasir were brothers?
No.
I don't remember if I did or not. I remember it. I'm trying to remember what I thought. I think.
Well, I'm also horrible at predicting things. So I just really don't even try most of the time.
That Silver Witch is the most like Gandalf, Glinda the Good character I've experienced in a long time. I'm just like, be better.
I know. I think Silver Witch kept throwing me off because I kept envisioning. I forget her name, but the evil one from Narnia, was it the White Witch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kept envisioning that, so it was kind of not fitting. But that was a me thing, not a book thing.
But like literally everything's her fault, and like she's not very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, and then it turns out she's the Sultana, and it was like, oh,
okay,
yeah, which I wasn't. That part didn't really like shock me that much as other parts.
No, yeah, I don't think for me. So there were a couple twists, right? The brother reveal, the Sultana thing, the lion. You know what we all learned about the lion. But like, I think all those things were interesting, but it wasn't like, holy shit, what's happening? Like, it wasn't like that. Like, some of it was definitely very like, oh yeah, okay, this works. Continue.
Yeah.
I mean, I did think Altair's powers were cool to discover. How he's like the opposite of Nasir with light.
Yes, I loved that.
Yeah.
I really loved that.
Oh, I have a text. Is this an important text? No, this is a tweet. Is it an important tweet? No, it has a cat, though, playing a piano.
Well, that just trumps everything. Oh.
This is what my fiance sends me while he knows I'm in a live stream. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
So I don't know. So in that regard, like, I know a lot of people like the ending a lot, but I thought it took me a while to get used to the Zumra and like understand, even though a lot of time happens where they're traveling together. Like we have a lot of like cutscenes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was better for me with audio because then I was at least getting like personalities. Like I don't know if the personalities are well done on page for every member of the Zumra.
Yeah, I think because I did both. I kind of flip-flopped between audio and physical, and I think they come out better on audio.
Yeah.
Because like we said, when you're reading, I mean, I have one voice in my head.
Yeah, and so like I could get I forget her name, but the 9 fighter woman who is like asexual, so that's like cool rep. She's ace.
Does it start with a K?
Yeah. I can't remember how to pronounce her name. Kifa?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I liked her way more in the audio because I think her sass came across better in the audio, which like how do you write sass without being like she sassily said, you know, like I mean I don't actually even know. I mean I'm not a writer. So.
Yeah, and I feel like with the culture you can't say it like from a Western perspective, you know, it wouldn't fit.
Yeah. So I liked her. I think I mean I think I've always liked Benjamin, but like he also was a character who I'm like, this is just like chiller Altair. Like I couldn't like it's like not as fun Altair.
Yeah, Altair had so much personality.
Yeah,
I
like
him.
Just and then like with the audiobook, his booming voice, just like it's like, hello, sir.
Yes. Like, I'm in the house. It's party time.
Something you have to look forward to in the sequel, perspective chapters.
Yes.
Just letting you know. So.
That is, you know, speaking of chapters, that's one thing I wish the chapters were longer, which
that's not for the genre though. Young adult does short chapters.
And I like that the chapters together, some of them were still the same scene, just different perspectives, but it was like, oh, this is 2 pages and then we're on to the next one. And it was kind of jarring at first until you get used to it.
I think I was okay with it, but like I'm also not someone anymore because like after reading some books where like the chapters are like hours long, it's like, you know, normally it's like if I can stop at the end of a chapter, but now I just give up and I stop wherever there's a break in the page. And I just try my best. I definitely didn't notice it with audio.
I didn't notice it with audio, but like physically reading it, it was noticeable to me.
Yeah. I do think that's just a hallmark of what is most done in young adult. Mainly because like people feel more productive when they finish chapters and they'll keep going. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think I feel that way as much anymore. And I think the chapters didn't do what I hate, which is when it ends on like a dun dun dun, you know? Like there are some books that overuse that ability. And I'm like, well, not everything needs to be on next week's episode. Like
I did appreciate that about this one. It only happened purposefully.
Yeah, and in moments that like made sense, like when they're about to fight some monster on this really weird island. I don't remember what the people are called, but I think they were like hyena people when they like kind of made a truce with them instead of having to fight them.
Pelusia?
Maybe, but it was like the people who were cursed to the island to be in that form, and then they were like, well, we're trying to get magic back and we'll like fix it.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
I liked that.
Yeah.
Yes. And the romantic angst in this book is like top tier for me.
Yeah, it was my type, which I totally get. Not everyone. I think some people were shipping different relationships. I don't know specifically, but I'm sure some people wanted Zafira and Kifa. Probably. Or maybe Altair or something. But like I like that Kifa's asexual on page. And like I think that's nice to just like have it, but also it's not like a plot point, but it's like a thing that's at least like talked about between friends, which is like what would happen if you're just like friends getting to know each other. Especially when you're like the 2 women among all of these absurdly attractive men. Because are we gonna pretend that Altair and Nasir are not attractive people?
Right. Especially when she first saw them, it's like, oh, he doesn't have a shirt on, and it's like scandalous.
So like, I mean, even Benjamin, who's like off limits because he has a wife, is like one of those immortal Safin like people. So like, what are we gonna do?
All immortals are good looking, apparently.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever read a fantasy that has immortals that don't look good.
Right.
Sometimes you get vampires where like you're stuck in like a young age and that's just like weird, right? Like I know Fledgling does that by Octavia Butler.
True Blood, whatever form you're in when you turn, that's what you are as an immortal. But I think that's one of the only ones where I've read that.
Yeah, so I think sometimes vampires.
Yeah.
But
poor vampires.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? But no, yes, I agree that like the angst between those two characters is like real great. And like I really like that we got Nasir perspectives because Nasir is so like insecure in head. But like when we're with Zafira, he's just like got the moves.
I know.
I was just like, oh, this is great. That only gets better.
I loved him.
So good.
It felt so realistic, which I appreciated.
And like, I don't know. I also like how we come to terms with the fact that like she is starting to like this person who she thinks killed one of her best friends, but then she kind of learns what happens and kind of learns the truth of it all, that it was just like a horrible accident. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of sucks. But I don't know. And like that whole scene with the lion and how stressful it is when like everyone's like, you know, chained up and like when we're revealing things. The lion is such a dick. It's just like
so well written though, I think, because I had strong reactions.
I mean, I'm someone who it's actually really hard for me to come around to like a antagonist that is a person. I'm definitely like antagonistic forces to be otherworldly or like the environment or whatever. I think that's better for me, or an institution. Mm-hmm. When it's like something, but when it's like a singular individual, it can be hard. I think he's pretty good and I think he makes sense, but especially like we're just meeting him now, and I think his motivations, at least at this moment, were really clear of trapped on island but like off island,
right?
Like,
yes,
great. Could he have just asked nicely? Maybe a little more power hungry there.
Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, but no, like the reveals with the lion were interesting. How that was always the voice in Zafira's head when she was going to the R's and everything like that. And all of the stuff with Zafira's family that we learn about her mom and dad, and like why she has this strange relationship with her mom and what happened to her dad because she was sick and couldn't hunt that day. It's just a lot. It's just, there's so many daddy issues and mommy issues. Like that's another thing. Like Nasir and Zafira are both like people who think that they're both monsters, who have like the worst family figures.
They have more in common than they think.
Yeah. So I really liked that. And I think Rachel from Reads with Rachel, when she's read both books, and she's like, at first I was annoyed by all the simping Nasir does for Zafira. Then I leaned into it. And I like that he calls her his gazelle.
I know. My fair gazelle. There was one scene where she was trying to clean his cut or burn that he got, and she's like in his lap and he called her my fair gazelle, and my heart was like,
that scene was so much.
It was, and not a lot happens, but it's so like tension and angsty.
That's important for me in young adult, especially if it's young adult that's literally like meant for a young adult audience. It's not going to go into like erotica or anything like that. Like for me to have fun, I needed to have like so much teasing moments like that.
Yes.
Like I like the moments before the kiss. I need a lot of that. I need a lot of stupid descriptions about blood racing or whatever. Like
it kind of reminded me like of Jane Austen vibes, because you don't get a lot of physical contact, but there's the tension and the teasing and all that. And then when it finally does happen, it's like,
well, especially since like Nasir doesn't know what to do because he's been like training himself to not feel things for so long, because the last person he felt things for lost a tongue. So And then like he meets this person who he just like connects with somehow, which like I guess some people could say is Insta Love, but like honestly, whatever. Like
Yeah, and maybe because it wasn't, I guess, as physical as other young adults usually are, it didn't feel insta lovey to me.
well, I think there is a lot of time they spend together. Like we don't
Yeah.
spend that time with them, but there are weeks that they're traveling on this island. And it does start off like I mean, I would never actually call this enemies to lovers. I don't know what trope I'd call it because it's not really. It's more like they're trying to ignore each other, but they're in close proximity, and there's obviously like just that baseline chemistry, and like, and that's what you play off of. And I think that's realistic. I think it was played off as insta lust that developed into like I respect you, and then that respect turned into caring and like being concerned if the other got hurt. You know, and I think that's like a reasonable trajectory, especially for like hormonal teenagers who haven't let themselves connect to other human beings.
Yes. Although I kept envisioning them as like in their 20s, not teenagers.
I mean, in this world, I think based off the state of this world, being late 17 is the same as being mid 20s in our world in terms of responsibility expected of individuals.
Yeah, I just like in my mind, I kept visualizing like older protagonists, which is not a big deal, but
yeah. I mean, are they 19? I can't remember the exact age. They're somewhere in the late teens.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that fits with the age, some of the tropes too.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I still think it solidly works for the teenage range of 14 to whatever, because I don't think it's too explicit. Mm-hmm. Not that I personally don't care if a book is super explicit, because like if a kid wants to read a book that has sex in it, they're gonna find it. There's like a whole romance section in that bookstore. But what I do agree is something that should be easier for kids and people to figure out is like, sure, I could find it. What if I don't want to find it? Like, what if I don't want it to be like, 5 jalapenos? Like, what if I just like want like 1.5? Like, how do I?
Yeah, because some books, like if I'm specifically wanting something like that, I know what to go for. But if I'm in a fantasy book, like we can fade to black. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't bother me if it doesn't, but
yeah,
I
and like
have to have it.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I think in my head, this solidly fits into what it was intended for market wise. Mm-hmm. So definitely like, I think Zafira is supposed to be the same age as Spensa in Skyward. Have you read Skyward?
Mm-hmm.
This is still to this day the reason why I don't love the character work of Spensa. Like, I mean, I like her in that I think a lot of people see themselves in her, and I'm very excited for them. But I just cannot believe that Spensa is a 17-year-old in a dystopian society that's trying to survive.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me. Like, this Zafira's in a dystopian world that's trying to survive at around 17, and I'm like, yes, this is what happens.
Yeah, Skyward, I just kind of took it on face value. It was just a fun... I didn't hold it to the same standard as I do adult Sanderson. But I totally agree with you that she does not seem like the same age as this character.
Yeah. But that's just like a tiny hill that I don't die on, but it's like, it annoys me. And I don't know why. It really shouldn't annoy me. I should just let people like it. And I'm just like, I think, yeah.
We all have our tastes.
I just feel like such a betrayer of my Sanderson love when I don't love his young adults. I really hate the Reckoners. Really don't like it.
I get it. And so, some YA books handle that better than others. Like, yeah.
Well, and I also like that this still is like a coming of age story and a change in like career story. Like, I mean, near the end of this, she's like, wait, what if we do this? Who am I without the R's? Like, what?
I like that aspect.
Yeah, right? That's good. Like, it's some good stuff. Like, and that talks about, identity being tied to occupation, which is why, like, at the beginning, we are really only seeing these characters refer to themselves, the Huntress and the Assassin, because that's who they are, and it's not till they meet this Zumra and meet each other that they suddenly are more themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like also trying to figure out what that means. Like Nasir's only motivation up till this point is need to do what my dad wants because maybe I'll get to see that glimmer in his eye that he still loves me.
Right.
Yeah. Ugh.
Dad is a horrible person.
It's not his fault. You know that.
I know, but I still hate him.
He was possessed by the lion.
I know, but I just feel so bad for Nasir.
That's fair. Hate the lion. Dad didn't.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's not beyond forgiveness. I just feel bad for him.
I mean, yeah, you should. He was literally whipped as a child and like psychologically tortured and
yes,
forced to kill others. Yeah, like Nasir did not have it easy. Like at all. Also, what color is Nasir's hair? I think I picture him wrong. I don't know what color his hair is. Is it blonde or brown?
I envision brown hair. Is it blonde?
I think he might be blonde.
I am not the person who remembers little details like that, which is sad because I literally just read this.
Oh no, I see. Okay, the fan art has him as brunette, so I
Oh
think
my gosh. Blonde just would have been weird to me. I think just because I've always envisioned him with brunette hair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I also just like, I'm very bad. I just have like basic art ideas. What does Altair look like? I'm now just looking at fan art.
It does have really good fan art.
Altair is the blonde.
Oh, okay. See, that makes more sense because he's not completely human, right?
Yeah.
Because he's got the ears.
Yeah. I don't know how much you know about Altair. I can't remember how much has been revealed at this point.
We've just, I think, touched on the tip of it.
Who's Altair's mom?
The Sultana.
And the Sultana is one of the sisters. So yeah, both him and Nasir, you do know, have like it's not even as simple as Safin blood. It's like the special I can have magic without the little minarets with the hearts.
Right.
That Altair is real good looking with his falcon in this picture. Sorry.
Yeah, that was a cool scene too, speaking of the hearts, like getting them all up on the roots. That I really liked that scene.
Oh, the book when she accidentally like now has a talking object.
I love sentient objects.
Oh, my cat's gonna have the zoomies, so if you hear him, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
He's about to run around.
Kutao?
Of course.
Aww.
He's a baby. He was so cuddly last night. I think he was so mad that we all left him for a whole 22 hours to go to a wedding.
That poor abandoned child. He's like, yes, that is exactly right. Somebody call protective services.
He's 14 years old. He's doing great. So, he can shut up. He gets fed. He gets all the cuddles.
And this has been documented on camera. He's fine.
Yeah, he's very, very chonky. The vet calls him Hardy. Which Poots out. Come
Aww.
here. Come here. He's upset because Ryan's grocery shopping.
Oh, poor baby.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to show you the camera. You can say hi to Stephanie. Oh.
He's so fluffy.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you are. You are so fluffy. So.
Oh, somebody is not in a good mood.
It just is. Okay. What else? So yeah, the tree scene was cool. I liked the scene where like she ended up accidentally with the lion and like when she almost kind of not quite, I don't think we ever really believe she'll join with him, but how like the arguments are intriguing. Mm-hmm. Because she does, I think it's not something we haven't touched on, is like her caliphate, the patriarchy is strong. It's not that case in every caliphate, but like hers is particularly anti-women doing anything of note. And I liked the moment when she like revealed that she was the huntress and like things like that. And so the argument of like, what is this world doing for you? So.
Yeah. I'm sorry, he just looks so interested in this conversation. It's just cracking me up.
He's really not interested. But.
I know, but you talk and he's just like, yes, yes.
He does like when people talk to him. He sometimes will then meow to be a part of the conversation. But yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I really like that. And I like the imagery that we got with those scenes. It was just really cool to envision like the shadow, and I just envisioned it as really dark but kind of ethereal. It was really cool.
There is a thing that like I think it's interesting, and it ties Nasir and Zafira even closer together. Is like Zafira, like the voice that always was talking to her, is the Lion who has this connection to shadow magic, and then Nasir happens to have an affinity for shadow magic, and it's like that's part of it. Like they're all like shadowy individuals and stuff like that. And he just left. I gave him all that love, and now he's yelling in the hallway again.
You know, Oliver does that too. She'll just go in a random room and just start howling. Like,
for no reason.
She's so neglected.
Yeah.
Just like that.
I feel bad for my neighbors who haven't actually been loud, because I think the walls between our two units are not actually that thick. And it's like, they probably think we're torturing this poor thing. And I'm like, Pooch, if you keep doing this, I want to have to let them pet you. Like, so I'm big on trying to have good neighbor energy.
I get that.
Yeah.
They probably hear me yelling at Oliver at night because she always has to be like right here at night and then like lick my forehead while I'm trying to sleep. And so I'm constantly like, lay down, lay down.
So did you notice the thing that I don't like about the audiobook? It doesn't happen in the sequel audiobook.
I don't think so.
Because, so at least I just got mine from Libby, so I don't think there's multiple versions of this audiobook. But when I was immersion reading it, I could tell that for the female narrator, the name Zafira was changed. Like it had a different name originally.
Oh, see, I didn't catch that, but I listened to it on a higher speed than I normally do because I was also immersion reading it.
Yeah, I think if you listen to it at super high speed, like I was still listening to it at 2 or 2.35, but I think the higher it is, the less you'll notice. But like every time the word Zafira was said, it wasn't in the same sentence. You could tell it was edited in.
Interesting.
And it was every single time in the middle of a sentence on its own.
That would have really bothered me had I caught that.
I caught it really early on. And so when I just did the audio, I wouldn't notice it. But when I was trying to immersion read, I was like, I hate this. Yeah, and it didn't happen with the male narrator. So it was just obvious that when she recorded the first round, there was a change in name for the main character. And now I'm curious what her name was originally. But
I know.
Because that was the only big thing. That was the only thing that was changed. And obviously it has a lot of changes because like, and that doesn't happen with We Free the Stars. We Free the Stars has none of those issues. So, but like it bothered me so much. It's just like, what is this?
I get that.
Like if I had paid for that audiobook, I would have been pissed. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. Especially with how expensive audiobooks are. I'm just, and to some extent, I get it. That's a lot of hours that the narrator already clocked. You can't just like redo all that time. But it's just like, ugh, it's kind of like, okay, this is dumb. But I do compare the two. When I buy an ebook, which I rarely buy ebooks, like I bought Rhythm of War, the ebook, right when it came out, because like that book's like this big. And I was like, I would like my Kindle. And when I first bought it, and it did change after a couple weeks, it didn't have page numbers. I'm like, excuse me, I spent $18 on this book. I demand page numbers. And they do eventually, but it's just like, it wasn't there yet. I'm like, how hard can this be? You just arbitrarily like do some stupid math. Like this is not that hard.
Yeah, that would bother me. Yeah. But the nice thing about ebooks is it's easily fixable. But yeah, I think if I had listened at a slower speed, I probably would have caught that and it would have bothered me too.
It's just obvious that it's recorded like at a different type of day. It's like those subtle like little things. Like you know, it just, there's a difference when you like have a word that's in the sentence as you flow it, and versus when it's like inserted, and you can't quite do that. So I don't know. It bothered me, and but I've been trying to be really nice and not tell people what bothered me so that they don't unsee it. You know?
I appreciate that, because I probably would have caught it had you mentioned it.
Yeah, it really. But I switched. Like I listened to most of this. I had to travel to Western Mass and back for a bachelorette party, and I was listening to it. Like I said, like 2.2 times speed or higher, and I was able to listen to like half of it on that car drive, and it was so engaging. Like I was stuck in traffic. I'm like, well, at least I got this book.
It was engaging. I read the last 250, 300 pages like yesterday to this morning.
Part of that is because it was worth doing that, but another part is that this is what you do to yourself every month.
I do that to myself, but sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I have to finish this book. But this time it's like, I have to know what happens.
Okay.
So it wasn't unenjoyable.
So I guess this is an important question. Since I've known you, since I have followed your channel, this book has been on TBRs. Was it worth it?
It was worth it.
Okay.
It was. And I would reread it again. And now I'm happy that I have a signed copy.
I'm excited for her next release. She has another one coming out.
It sounds really good.
What's the premise of it?
The Tempest and the Teapot, I think. I'm not really sure.
I don't know what genre it is. I mean, okay, it's wrong for me to assume, but I assume it's for a young adult audience.
I think so. Oh, A Tempest of Tea. Excuse me. I don't know where I got a Tempest and a Teapot.
I mean, you got Tempest and tea.
Yeah. It says it's pitched as King Arthur meets Peaky Blinders with vampires.
You know, vampires are back, man.
Fall of 2022.
Okay, so it used to be spring of 2022, but I assume the paper shortage has made everyone.
Yeah, or at least according to Goodreads, which we all know could be very wrong.
This website needs to be fixed. I don't actually blame people for having bad websites per se, although it seems weird in the year 2022. But it says coming spring 2022, King Arthur meets Peaky Blinders, but at the end of the page says publication of the first novel is set for fall 2022. Like, this is the same page.
Yeah, they just don't care. But
I
yeah,
think it's just you change one thing and you forget to change the other. So
they have enough money. They could easily fix that problem.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like,
but maybe I'm just bitter. I don't know.
I think it's because like when you do stuff like BookTube and Twitter, like you're so on top of it for your like own stuff, and you know like that it takes effort, but it's actually not that much effort. I think that's when you like when I hear about all the nonsense that happens on book community tea with like people like not putting the right cover with the right author, I'm like, I literally edit in covers into my videos all the time. It takes like no time.
I know.
To like Google a name.
And it takes 2 seconds to double check yourself.
Like I even try and make sure I mark people's preferred pronouns, and like I'm now adding, now that I've been doing a lot of audiobooks, because that's what's been great about my new noise canceling headphones, is I can immersion read a lot, and it's been really fun. But I'm like putting the narrators of the audiobooks, mainly so that I can keep track of like, 'cause sometimes you listen to an audiobook and it's like, have I listened to this narrator before? I don't know, because I've never looked it up. And so the only one I ever can track is Robin Miles, because she's a treasure.
Yeah.
So should we tell people who aren't here, but just for the sake of what we do every month, what next book's book?
I was distracted by the synopsis. Next month is Ninefox Gambit by Yoon Ha Lee, which I'm very excited but very nervous about.
I'm so excited.
I think I'll like it. I just don't want to overhype myself.
I think you definitely should just go in not knowing what you're going to think. I don't think you're going to have a negative experience, but I just don't think you should know what your experience is going to be. I have read this book. I really like it.
Especially because I've read Yoon Ha Lee's middle grade Dragon Pearl, and I thought it was a 3-star. Like, I liked it.
Did you also read Phoenix Extravagant? I can't remember if you...
Oh, I did read that too. And I gave that a 3.5.
Yeah. I haven't read the middle grade, but I also gave Phoenix Extravagant a 3.5, and I really love Machineries of Empire. So I think it's just very different. In terms of like originality of idea, that's all the same in the sci-fi fantasy fusion, although Ninefox Gambit, pure space opera, military sci-fi. Actually, Kayla can explain some of the hard sci-fi. I cannot, because it's based off math and like statistics and
Kayla
stuff like
would
that.
be really good at that.
No, yeah, Kayla, when she was reading it, was telling me about the stuff that like actually makes sense based off what they're like trying to do. But Judith liked it. Like, didn't really understand what was happening because that's like what happened. And like Kayla and Lena liked it. And I've had more people who I'm like are not hard sci-fi people pick it up off my recommendation and like not hate their time, which makes me more confident that like, yes, this is not just an Angela had a great time reading this book.
Right. It's an actual good book.
It has like an actual net of humans who might read it. But like what you just have to do is read it and but you've read Gardens of the Moon, so you're totally prepared for the whole what just happened. That was cool, but why?
Yeah,
what?
Just go with it.
And then eventually you'll just be with our main characters and you can just enjoy their banter because there's great banter. And you liked Foundry Side, right?
I did. I really liked Foundry Side.
The companion offside voice is definitely a component of this book.
Yeah, I think I'm going to like it. I'm just keeping my expectations lower.
This is usually everyone's least favorite of the series, which I guess technically it's not my favorite. My favorite is the end book. Like, it's one of the best series enders I've ever read. Like, that was a 5-star read for me from like chapter 1, which like that doesn't happen with every book. Most people, I think, actually like the second book the best, but I was thrown because we changed character perspectives, and I was like, but, and I was a stubborn child, and instead of letting myself love the characters sooner, I like, oh, your mom's here.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, Karen.
She's in the next room.
Your mom's great.
Yeah, she's adorable. So
but
funny.
It's going to be a Ninefox Gambit. It's only 300 pages. It's currently Space Opera September.
She said hi. Sorry.
No.
Yes, it was very fitting. Did we do that on accident or did we do that on purpose?
Accident. We pulled a bunch of books that we had in the past and then one.
That's right. Anyway, yeah, I'm really excited for that one. And the covers are so gorgeous.
I love them. I love them so much. They're so pretty. They're just so vibrant.
Yeah, they're very eye-catching. And honestly, it'd be one that I'd pick up off the shelf like, ooh, what's this about?
And like, I guess mine are probably technically the UK paperbacks because I got them on Book Depository, and that's normally what happens. But they have a very good binding for mine, and they have kind of like a velvety cover feel. Mm. For those who care about tactile things.
I totally get that. I can do those except for cloth bound. I cannot do cloth bound.
Yeah,
books.
You have a weird hatred for cloth bound. I'm just like, okay.
I can't. It just gives me that like.
What do? Just stare at the penguins cloth bounds and just be like, I wish I could have you?
Yes, I do, because they're gorgeous. But if I owned them, I couldn't touch them.
You could get gloves.
I know. But what's the fun in that?
I have no clue, honestly.
Imagine me reading that in public with like just wearing gloves.
Well, you would need to get a hat and have some tea. Like, you'd have to commit to an aesthetic.
I would. That's too much work.
There's a chance.
But, yeah, it's okay.
Well, we should
jackets. I could do it.
You monster reading a book with a dust jacket on.
I know.
Monster.
I know. But anyway, yes. So I'm looking forward to Ninefox Gambit.
We're working on the following month. We haven't voted yet, but it's going to be spooky. So keep an eye on the Twitter. Wear sunglasses. I think that's a good suggestion. I think the gloves and sunglasses. Gloves are very important to Ninefox Gambit. I'll let you ruminate on that. Well, gloves are very important.
I'll work on that and get back to you guys.
You should definitely wear gloves when you read The Mask of Mirrors again.
That would be so perfect. I still have my mask too.
I can't wait to reread that.
And a what? And a mask. To be safe.
Dude, I had a wedding this weekend and we were all vaccinated, and it's like, but it's still just like so many people.
I know. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no worries. This whole stream has been chaos.
It's time to water my plants, apparently.
All right, everyone. Stephanie has to water her plants. This was a great discussion. You should all for sure read the sequel if you liked the first book. If you didn't like the first book, you know what to do. You know.
But please read the sequel. I'm excited. I have it on hold.
The audiobook is like really good for that. So
yes. Awesome. Well, thank you to the 2 people that showed up. And thanks, Mom. She's not paying attention. But yeah, we will see you guys next month. And bye. And